Okay, so good morning, Athan.
Good morning, Moses. How are you?
Good, very good, very good. You look like you are in Epcot Center there.
Yeah, I've got my little setup here. I've been working on my backdrops and stuff, so I kind of got my chair and all my comfy stuff. So
That looks like the Matrix chair, Morpheus.
yeah, yeah, I can see that. This is my favorite chair, so I ended up taking it out of the house and bringing it here into the office.
Yeah, that looks really cool, really comfortable.
Yeah.
So we have so many things to talk today, so many subjects in common. Maybe I want to start talking about what's your mission with the Strive Academy. Do you say Strive Gym or Academy?
We say Strive Strength and Conditioning, but most people
Oh,
just
okay,
call it Strive.
okay.
Um, yeah, so the template mission statement that we use is that we empower people with the strength to live happier, healthier, and more successful lives.
Amen.
Yeah, so that's the core of it. And so the idea is that we believe that how you do anything is how you do everything. And if you can learn skills, habits, and behaviors about how you develop physical strength, then you can develop strength and abilities in all capacities of your life beyond your physical abilities. And that's really what we're all about here. On the surface, of course, people come to us because they want to lose weight, get a little stronger. But what they don't realize they're saying is they want to feel more capable. They want to feel more confident. They want to be respected and seen in their communities in powerful ways. And the gym is our gateway drug to helping people do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And what are the main aspects that this strength and conditioning program can bring to people besides like probably resilience and discipline?
I think first of all, the biggest thing that we're always trying to do is get people to, you are not your body. You live in your body, and this is your vehicle, just like your car, that gets you from point A to point B. And if your car's not running really well, your engine's shot, you got flat tires, you got broken glass and everything else, you're going to have a really hard trip wherever you're going to point B. And so at the core of what we do is we're just trying to get your vehicle running really well, so that you resonate, you vibrate at the right levels, so that when you get to do the things that you love doing, hopefully you're on a journey to doing things that you love, whether that be family life or your career aspirations or whatever. That when you get there, you're ready. You're ready to take it on.
Wow, yeah. Um, so what I find it interesting, I joined your place probably a few months ago, and I really like the recovery room, which is also
Yeah,
part of the program, right? Uh,
yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I have to disclose here that I'm a very lazy person in terms of gym, and I have been pretty busy nowadays with the podcast and other stuff. And I really want to be more participative and get the most of what you're offering. But for now, I'm using mostly the recovery room, which is the sauna and the cold plunge. Can you talk more about that, the recovery room? I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, we were so excited to be able to add this to our offerings a couple of years ago. The first thing that one of the myths about physical fitness is that you get better when you're doing a workout, and you actually don't. Your body breaks down, your muscle tissue breaks down, you deplete your energy systems, and the only way that you actually get better is through what we call super compensation, meaning that you do your workout and actually your body gets worse because you broke down. But because your body is such an amazing organism, it will super compensate for that breakdown and will end up better than it started if and only if you have good recovery methods. And recovery methods are things like the most important ones are going to be your sleep and your nutrition. And there are some other special things that you can do to really help boost that recovery. And that's really where the recovery room came about. Um, there's been tons of empirical research that supports deliberate hot and cold exposure. So we put those in, and then there's infrared and light therapy and all these different things. You know, they're not going to, in truth, and I try not to lie to anybody about this. Like, they aren't going to make the most major changes in your recovery, but they certainly enhance and boost it. And so both of those, so we have cold plunges, cold plunge baths that you can get into, and we have infrared saunas that you can climb into, and they both have similar benefits. It kind of just depends on what's your jam. What do you prefer? Do you prefer to only spend 1 or 3 minutes in a cold plunge, or do you rather sit for longer periods of time in the saunas? But at the end of the day, you're going to get similar benefits. One, your blood flow, you know, the system that pumps all your nutrients and all the good chemicals throughout your body is going to be enhanced, and it's going to push it to farther reaches in your extremities. You are going to sweat more. You're going to burn calories and things like that just by being deliberately exposed to those temperatures. Your mood is going to be boosted. You are going to become more durable. There's a lot of just great benefits to that room, and we love, and there's mental toughness, there's resilience capacities, because you know, it is difficult to sit in those temperatures, whichever one it is, cold or hot, and
Give us
your
an
mental.
idea. Give us an idea of the temperatures.
Yeah, so really medically beneficial. So if we're just talking about the cold, medically beneficial temperatures, anything under 60 degrees Fahrenheit. We keep ours in the 50s, like mid 50s, 54, 55. Many people get in it much colder, 40 degrees, even the higher, like just above freezing. But that's not really super necessary. But you know, you get in a 54-degree cold plunge, and it's very, very cold. And then in the infrared saunas, they aren't the dry saunas. They don't get as hot as like the more traditional types of saunas. So ours will go up around 130 degrees to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Maybe 100, you know, if it's a good day and it's really operating well, we might get into the 150 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow. So since a lot of people that listen to this podcast are from other countries, I'm just going to make a translation. So 50 Fahrenheit would be like 10 Celsius, and 140 will be like 60 Celsius, something
Okay.
like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So yeah, I have been I'm telling my friends as a joke, that's a physically lazy workout, physically lazy people workout, which and I noticed, like, really it's a big reset for me. For example, there was a South by Southwest a few months ago, and I was there from 9 a.m., waking up like at 6, 9 a.m. to 1 a.m. every single day, 6 days, getting exposed to all kinds of information, all kinds of stimuli. And by the end of the day, I would just go my sauna, I do sauna and cold plunge, and then I would totally new for the next day. Amazing,
Yeah.
you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
And people don't really realize, I think people undervalue and underestimate that hard reset that they offer for you. You know, if you've had a stressful day, if you're feeling run down, maybe your immunities are feeling like you're about to get sick or something like that, you can jump in there, and it's powerful, the type of reset you can get.
I'm also doing a detox, and that's the reason I stay in the sauna a little more. I stay probably 1 hour in the sauna.
Yeah.
And I understand when you say the sauna is not so hot as the regular sauna, but after 30 minutes, I'm like sweating, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets really uncomfortable. I like when I'm doing it, when I'm really trying to get the most out of it. I really try. I think that right around 30 minutes, you get really hot and it gets really uncomfortable. And then then I really try to develop the mental strength to tolerate that for, 10 to 20 minutes longer. Than once the point I've hit discomfort, I try to stick that out for about 10 to 20 more minutes, and that really seems to be what works for me.
I crack up with the email. I don't know if we should say your email online here, but your email is all about that, right? The extension of your email is something like "don't get easy" or something, right?
Oh yeah. We can say it on here. It's easy is evil. And I'm a big believer in doing hard things. I believe that when you do hard things, you're going to fail a lot, and when you fail a lot, you're going to grow. You're going to learn. Learning only when you do something successfully. And I don't want to. I was going to come back to the thing that you said about being a lazy fitness person, because I think there's some strength in that, and I think there's some ways to really work through that. But I also know that what challenges you changes you. And if it's not hard, it's not going to challenge you.
And life provides its own challenges to us, but when you take the challenge consciously, it's a bit different, right?
Yeah, there's all different, unexpected things are going to happen in your life, and you have to deal with them as they come. And you kind of want to have the confidence that, I walk around in my life now with the confidence that whatever comes, I can handle it. I've been through some stuff, and you if you get around the block enough times, you kind of know that, like, your anxiety goes way down about what might come, because whatever might come, if you're ready, if you know that you're ready, then you're not that worried about it.
Yeah, there's something about conscious suffering. That's actually one of the spiritual teachings of a master that I respect. His name is Gurdjieff. Have you heard about Gurdjieff?
No.
Oh, you would like his mindset. He talks about conscious suffering, which is the path to really grow, both
Mm,
physically, anyway, especially spiritually. He talks about strengthening your soul.
yeah,
Anyway, yeah.
I love that.
So Ethan, tell us like what a little bit of the background that made you create Strive and why are you involved in this industry?
Yeah, I've, early on in my life, I picked up strength and conditioning as a way to just be better at sports. I wanted to, that was where I found my identity, and where I felt, I had opportunities to, I really struggled with self-esteem and confidence, and I had a ton of insecurities. And so one of the ways that I was able to break out of that was through sport, or as a young person. And so, fitness is clearly a part of that. So I kind of was trying to learn how to train my body to be the most, the best that it could be for what I was, how I was trying to apply it. Um, right out of high school, actually before I even got out of high school, I signed up for the military, the Army. And once I got into the Army, I started. It was still the same endeavor. I had a really difficult job. You're quite literally, it was life or death type of situation, and you wanted to prepare yourself physically so that you survive whatever situations are going to come. And I really developed a skill and understanding of the human body, and how to help my teammates to become the most physically ready people that they possibly could be. And I really studied that. I guess I just naturally gravitated towards that aspect of the job. But what I learned in that process was, like, your physical capacity enhances everything else beyond your physical capacity, your mind state, what we already talked about, your confidence, your resilience, your ability to think. And so I really started to study those components, and I knew that, like, the learning developing physical strength was the gateway to developing lots of other types of strength. And so that really kind of took me through my military career, and I really became, in the units I was in, I was the guy who helped everybody to get better in those ways. Once I got out of the military, I was kind of lost. I was very lost, and I kind of lost. I stopped focusing on my own physical fitness. It was almost like, well, I don't have that job anymore, so I guess I don't need to. I became I went to graduate school, and you know, I I tried to play professional football for a while, and that worked out for me temporarily. But once that was done, I didn't really feel the need or the inspiration or motivation to really be physically strong anymore. And I really became lost, and dealt with depression a lot. Um, and
Oh
so
yeah, I know that those waters out there.
yeah. And and it's something I've always dealt with many times. I've relapsed into depression lots of times in my life. And what has always been a component of what pulled me out of that was to focus on my physical being. And it was again the gateway to something beyond my physical being, my mind state, my soul, my spirit, my thinking. And I became a social worker. So that's really where
Oh,
this all started. I became a social worker. My job was to help other people overcome obstacles in their life. And one of my observations through my work as a social worker was a lot of the people I preferred to work with young people, but I worked with people with all types of issues, all age groups, all people. And I started to learn that the people who were struggling the most also had the worst physical health, you
wow.
know. And I started to study that, and one of my platforms was, hey, let's just start to get physically healthy. Let's just work on our fitness a little bit. One, you're just going to feel better. You're going to feel better in your body, and when you feel better in your body, you're going to feel like you can handle these obstacles that you're dealing with. You know, I was dealing with poverty and um, abuse and crime and uh, health conditions like
It's
cancer.
a tough population. It's a very tough population.
Yeah, but I really fell back in love with helping them with their, you know, I was teaching them how to be physically fit, and I was seeing all these major successes in these people's lives when they bought into what I was selling them, you know, with fitness. They had these great outcomes, and I just it brought me back to the earlier stages of my life and what I realized what led me to success and a lot of other people in my success. So that's the long-winded way of saying that's how Strive came about. I started a free boot camp in a park where I just said, "Hey, come come join me. Come be a part of this." You know, I'm just doing body weight type of fitness out in a park in Austin, Texas. And
Which park?
it
Which park?
it was called Yellow Jacket Stadium. It was on the east
Oh,
side of Austin. It's still there, but I think I haven't been back in a while. I actually should go back and see what it looks like now. But it used to be a high school that was then, um, you know, they moved the high school somewhere else, and it was the city took over this facility, and it was an old football stadium. And yeah, so I would set up shop 3 days a week out there and invite whomever the people from the community to come, and anyone I knew, I was always inviting them. And it just grew, I think, organically. When you are the right person doing the right things, the abundance flows to you. And it just grew organically, naturally, and people were encouraging me to do more of this and in more organized manners. And it eventually it turned into being a brick and mortar gym. And then it turned into a very big gym, a very popular gym. And then it turned into 3 gyms. And over
this is all in
time,
all in Austin.
yeah, the Austin area. So at one time, I had 3 gyms. I had one in East Austin, one in Pflugerville, and one out here in Bastrop, where I currently live and operate. And you know, I learned, you know, not to jump into business stuff too much, but I learned over time, like, it wasn't, having multiple locations wasn't a good move for me. And I really love the community out in Bastrop, and I decided to focus out here and create this model that I'm currently operating now, which is the Bastrop Fitness Project, which my gym, Strive Strength and Conditioning, is a tenant inside of.
It's interesting because I might be wrong. I imagine Austin, you had more people going to the gyms there because of the population, no?
No,
No?
we have more people at the gym in Bastrop right now than we had. Maybe at our pinnacle, at our peak, we might have had the same amount, but not a lot more.
Oh,
Because in Austin there's so many more options. Uh,
oh.
you know, the population was very spread out. So here in Bastrop, we really are one of the few options. So we do have a pretty large client base.
I think it's the only option that has the recovery room with the cold plunge and sauna, no?
Yeah, there's like hot works in town that they have like a hot yoga, hot fitness kind of option. I don't know of anyone who has the cold plunges as like
Yeah,
a
I think
commercial
it's just,
option.
I made a research. I think it's just you.
Yeah.
That was my main attractor there.
Yeah. That's how, yeah, again, we're always trying to find the gateway, right? Trying to get what draws people in so we can start working with them.
Right. So do you have in Bastrop now, do you have people coming from Austin? Because it's just like 30, 40 minutes, right? No.
No, we have some people who are kind of, I'll say, on the fringes of Austin, like, Cedar Creek or Del Valley, something that's not, but ultimately, like you mentioned earlier, if it's not convenient, people aren't going to be consistent, and consistent is what works. So we don't have a lot of people from far reaches that come out to us. There are a few stories here and there about people who really do come. I can think of a couple members who drive over an hour to get here, but most of them aren't from the Austin area. They're from like more rural areas that don't have
Oh yeah,
anything
right.
close to them. So, um, but most people are gonna choose an option that's closer to them.
Yeah. I was thinking the other day, I used to live in Buda, and Buda, when there is no traffic, it's just like 35 minutes from here. And I thought, if I was still living there and I knew there was a cold plunge because of the reset uh, benefits that I feel, I would drive from Buda.
Yeah.
35 minutes is nothing, for the, yeah, really cool. So you told us about your experience in the army. It was the
Yes.
army branch, army.
Yes.
Okay, so you said that you were facing life and death situations. Have you ever gone to war? What kind of army activity were you facing that on a constant basis?
Yeah, I'm an airborne ranger. So I was in units that were quick response types unit. Anything happens in the world, we're one of the first people to go in. And in particular, I eventually got into units that were called, I'm an infantryman, so infantrymen are generally on the front lines, but I became
Wow.
um, uh, I ended up in long range surveillance units, which the essentially what we do is we go behind enemy lines. We're a very small team of six warriors who infiltrate behind enemy lines, and our job is to be the eyes, ears, nose on the ground for leaders who are making decisions. So we collect intelligence on whatever people are interested in,
So
and
it's a
so
mix of a warrior and a spy.
yeah. Yeah, essentially, my job was to go in there, no one know that I was there, get information that was valuable to our leadership, and then get out of there without getting caught. Um,
That's so
and
cool. It's like they call that special ops or something like that. Is
yeah,
that what they
special
call it?
operation. And, there's a lot of different types. People throw that term around loosely, but I would say this is a very specialized type of unit that and very elite group of soldiers that do this job.
Would you be able to share what kind of situation you prevented to happen or you helped to happen? Like, or
Yeah,
that's a secret?
we're not allowed to talk about specifics, but like I can generally say that, like, and it's hard to know because with all intelligence, with all information, it's hard to know when when you know better, you do better. And I'm sure that the information that my teams were able to collect gave information that either saved lives or helped make an operation go as smoothly as possible with the minimal amount of um, collateral damage on either side of whether it be with the opposing force or ours. So it's hard to know what kind of impact we were having, but I can say with confidence that we were really good at our jobs, and I did many 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 missions in real world situations and dangerous situations that were successful.
Thank you for your service.
Oh yeah, absolutely, thank you for saying that.
So, Ethan, how did you handle the possibility of death in those situations? How do you see this
Yeah,
thing that we call death?
it's really a dance, and I think for a while there I did think about this a lot. Well, I have to say, like growing up, I grew up in an impoverished urban community. I lived in the '90s. It was a very gang violence was a major part of my life growing up, and so I kind of was exposed to the possibility of death at a very young age,
Oh,
and had to figure out how to survive in dangerous situations. So it was something I was comfortable with even before I went into the military. Um, I speak openly and honestly about a couple aspects of it, and having been a person growing up who, my some of my childhood wounds are, I didn't feel like I was wanted or loved or had a lot of value in my life, in my family or my community, and so, um, you know, that led me into the military. And part of my experience in the military, I speak with it. I wasn't afraid of death because sometimes I thought death was the better option for
wow.
me. You
That's a
know,
pretty, that's a thought that people with depression tends to have a lot, right?
yeah, I have that thought to this day sometimes, right? Like maybe it would just be better if I wasn't around, And obviously that's not a truth, but that's a thought that we have sometimes, that I have sometimes.
Yeah,
And
it's a thought from the probably the our evil side. You
yeah,
have like an angel and a devil,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, so for me, one of the things about the being encountering these dangerous situations is I kind of hoped that I die. I thought that I would have more value as a dead person, that people would maybe say I was a hero, or somehow I would be idolized for that death, which is, again, that's an unhealthy way to think about that.
And
But
also a sacrifice, right? Thinking as a
yeah,
sacrifice, like mhm.
yeah. The other side of it is the more positive and healthy way to look at it is I knew that death was possible. And so to make myself to prevent death, and more importantly, I didn't really care about myself as much, but I definitely didn't want my soldiers, the warriors who are fighting alongside me to die for any situation. And so you do everything you can to make sure that that is an unlikely scenario. You get yourself physically fit, you train like crazy, your job inside and out. You have every contingency plan thought out. You've rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed so that you are at the pinnacle of your ability. When something like that happens, you know that you're going to be able to deal with it and win.
That's the best kind of leadership, the role model, lead by example.
Yeah, I hope so. That's how I was led. I've been so lucky to be led by some amazing leaders that taught me the way, and I've just tried to do the best I can to pay that forward.
Would you say their names in honor of them?
Yeah, there's probably
You
dozens
might you
of
might
them.
forget. So yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah. There's Julian Sapien and Alan Cooper and um, Mike Tolley and Mike McCulloch, and there's some guys who are out there, who some of them are no longer with us, and others who I won't mention their name, who are out there still doing some pretty special jobs.
and
You
they are
know,
all from the military background that you said here.
Well, those are the ones I'm mentioning now. I've had some other amazing leaders in my civilian life, who also have kind of taught me and led me, um, you know, uh, through my social work career and in the gym world.
You said you were a kid that had some insecurities and some challenges. Were you kind of thin or short or something more
Yeah,
than other
it
guys?
was a combinations. It was a combination of things. One, I was born to a single mother. I never knew my biological father, so there was
Mm.
like I kind of felt unwanted because the people who were supposed to love me the most, turned again, my story that I said in my head was they turned their backs on me and abandoned me. So that was like a big part of it. Like I didn't have value or worth. Like I was unwanted.
Were
That
you
was an
a
aspect.
single child? A single child?
Yeah, eventually my mom remarried and I had a stepfather, but it was that was a tenuous relationship in and of itself. And I was shorter and chubbier, and I wasn't really good at anything. I wasn't great at school. I wasn't a great athlete. Um, I really didn't have a lot of confidence in myself, and that really set me back mentally.
Okay, so you didn't have a father present, you didn't
Mm.
even know your father, and you didn't have siblings. So who were your male role models in early life?
I really didn't have a lot. I would say, my grandfather was someone who was very impactful for me. I spent time, I would go back to. I was born in Kansas, and my family lived in Kansas, still lives in Kansas, and so I would go back to the farm, and I would spend time with my uncles and my grandfather, who they really impacted me, and a lot of the work ethic and drive, and I would say some of the more redeemable parts of my character were modeled by them. And then I had a lot of negative male role models that like really again kind of set me back, in culture and society, because I was hanging around with people who weren't making good decisions. Some older kids than me who were in gangs and in crime and doing drugs and selling drugs and things like that. That you know from the surface, they taught me some negative things, but I also learned some really good things from those people as well.
Yeah, I heard that many boys they join gangs because that's one of the ways that they see to have a family or somebody to take care of them to be useful to
Yeah,
something higher. Yeah.
that was it for me. It was
Mhm.
someone who, no matter what activities we were involved in, we cared about each other and we made sure that we took care of each other and that we did our version of doing right by each other, which again wasn't always, looking back now, those weren't the best methods, but the intent and the love was there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Interesting. So I'm having some ideas here coming. I kind of just lost.
Yeah,
Anyway, yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff. Um, Suddenly I got a blank here. I don't know what to say.
it
Anything
happens all the time.
you can help to fill the blank?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I think the story that I'm talking about is a common story. Everyone has a little bit of a different variation of it. And you and I have talked a lot about how depression happens, like depression and things like that. And I think that that's something that facilitated my depression many times. I relapsed into depression many times. I still do sometimes. And I think that your story and the way that how you brought up is a big part of that.
Yeah. Yeah, my depression, I know. I mean, depression for me is just a label that it's so multifaceted. I have a very different view of what it is now. And, it has the biological aspect, it has the spiritual aspect, it has the external trigger aspect. In my case, it was always triggered by external situations of challenge, disillusionment, something didn't go right. And that triggered a lot of biological changes and mental changes, spiritual changes. But I feel like I hope that I'm done with it. I had probably five major episodes in my life since 2012. I don't know if you know, I had a brain tumor in 2010, and that was kind
Oh,
of the beginning. Yeah, that was kind of the beginning. I had to go to chemo after the extraction of the tumor, which was cancer, and I didn't know. It was like suddenly, and because they cannot take out excesses on the brain, so they said you have to go to a chemo treatment of pills so you can make sure you kill everything bad there. So after the chemo, I started feeling very, very weird. And I think that was one of the main triggers. That's why I'm
yeah.
trying to still detox from that era. You know?
Yeah, I think that I've seen that. So I actually used to work with folks surviving cancer as when I was a social worker. And one of the things that you see with that, beyond the physical aspect, I mean, obviously cancer is uh, puts a major demand on your body. There's a lot of things, and then the treatment itself is has all these major impacts. But and even beyond that, it's a it's a splash of reality of your mortality, about how, you know, we tend to float around in our lives kind of not thinking about death that much, and kind of feeling like, you know, we're invincible to some extent. And when you are faced with death like you were, it changes your perspectives on a lot of different things. Like, does my life have meaning? You know, have I fulfilled my purpose? And that's a major component of what I do now every day, is trying to help people to, because I think the way that I think about depression, yes, I do think there's a biological component to it for sure. I mean, that's been proven. But what I think is, and so learning from like Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him
Oh
at all.
yeah, of course. Yeah, I like him.
The way we think changes the chemical makeup of our body, and our body responds, you know, accordingly. And how I defined my depression, at least now, is it was my soul, my spirit screaming at me saying, like, we are not doing what we are here for. And
Absolutely.
I'm
Yes.
going to continue. And then, so basically my spirit's like, look, we're going to keep making this more painful for you until you make a change.
Until you
And
learn the lesson. Yeah.
it's the wake up call, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Joe Dispenza is connected to the epigenetics, right? Epigenetics and
Yes.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm participating in a workshop, an ongoing workshop. We can talk about that later if you want. There is a shaman that last week talked to us, and she was called an abuelita. It's a shaman from Mexico. And she said that in the ancient Mexico traditions, which go back to the Toltecs, which were before the Aztecs and the Mayans, they didn't have cancer.
Yeah.
Cancer was not something. And they consider cancer as like a modern illness. And the way they see cancer is exactly what you said. It's connected to guilt, but it's a guilt that was not existent in the past. It's a guilt that we have now, that we are not fulfilling our mission. They are not part of a community or something higher. We are not like manifesting what we came here for. And that guilt, it creates a sense of unableness, that, and that eventually has biological manifestation. And then the way I see biological, spiritual, psychology, I think everything is so interconnected. One affect each other.
Yes.
So yeah, you're right on. That's the things you share is in tune with the insight of the ancient Mexican shamans.
Yeah, again, I'm no doctor, and all of my thoughts are really my own, and I'm not even stating them as fact. But my assessment from my experiences in my life is that when we become so focused on ourselves, and in our current society and culture, it's really easy to be very insular and to be very inward. And I think that creates a environment in your body that creates disease, you know, dis-ease. And and then that can create all these different health conditions, which has also been proven by science. You know, cancer is one of those mysterious ones, which I think it's so mysterious because I think it is so related to the emotional aspects of ourselves, and we haven't quite figured that all out. You know, Western medicine hasn't quite figured that out yet, from my perspective. But yeah, I think that's it. It becomes a toxicity in your body that then makes your cells go crazy, and it becomes something that eats you alive from the inside out.
Isn't it interesting that the concept of cancer is very related to the concept of egocentrism? It's like a cell that only thinks about themselves, and their growth, and they don't care about the others, and they grow irresponsibly to the point that they kill their own host,
Yes. I
right?
think that's what, and wow, that is powerful. I think that's a beautifully articulated way of how I think about that. And that's probably what's happening in our society now, right? We are going to kill our humankind and maybe this earth because we've become so focused on our growth and expansion and all these other things that we just disregarded everything around us. And, you know, that seems to be the way that the world is heading.
I see that as a possibility. You said the word will, I would say might.
Right. Yes.
Right.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes me feel better. I feel that there's still a hope too. you know. Yeah, it's all about like the personality, the cult of personality, the cult of individual success in detriment of others.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
big subject. So, Ethan, can you tell us more about your spirituality, spiritual beliefs, and how God is related in your life?
Yeah, I consider myself a spiritual person. I feel that, and I can't explain this. It's not based in any facts, but other than I have a strong and deep believing that there is a creator. There is some intelligent design to how all of this is working. And from there, I have a lot more questions than I do have answers. You know, I don't, religion is a difficult topic for me because I feel that the second we try to define it and create structure around it, we bring in the human aspects of it, and humans mess up a lot of things. You know, I think we get a lot of things wrong by nature, and that's fine. Um, so I have a, I guess, diverse background in trying to study spirituality and trying to figure out what works for me as a person and what seems to work in certain populations. So I originally I grew up in a you know, an American Christianity kind of environment. No, we weren't like, we didn't go to church a lot, but we would go sometimes. And I would say a lot of our values and um, culture was kind of based in Christianity. So that's kind of where I learned, kind of reading the Bible and going to church in those ways. And I would still, and then I learned other teachings, other teachers, other, you know, Buddhism, Hinduism, Universalists. There's a lot of
What
different.
is that? What is that? Universalist.
Well, there's a universal perspective that just kind of, I think the shortest way to define it is that all religions have some component of this correct. You know, and there, you know, when you kind of look at all the teachings and all the different ways, it's just kind of like different flavors of what is truth, you know, because I
Yeah.
think there is a truth. We don't know the truth, but I think there is a truth, and we're all kind of working to define and kind of tie into that. And so from a universal perspective, if you can stop being so like agnostic, you know, like so like you know,
Fundamentalist or extremist?
yeah, just kind of like if you stop trying to fly your flag and say that I'm right and you're wrong, and you kind of see that, you try to see the strength in all different types of teachings, you begin to say, oh, okay, I can see this piece of the puzzle, and let me add it to this other piece of the puzzle. And so I kind of tend to walk around with that type of perspective now, from a, you know, from what is God, who is God, what is my relationship with God. I do tend to, because it's the one I'm most familiar with and I've grown up with the most. Um, I don't think you can call me a Christian, but I believe that from the teachings of what, how Jesus Christ walked the earth, it's a good example, right? It's
Yeah.
a good example of it's a good enough example of a role model for me to feel like that's, I wouldn't mind walking. I can say with pride, if I walked around the way that Jesus did, that I'm a good person, and I was doing the best I could.
It's one of the best role models. And I'm a Jew, and I'm talking about that. That's
Yeah,
you know.
I'm just not educated enough. I believe that like Judaism and Buddhism and all those others, I wouldn't say I'm studied enough to say that I can walk the walk like some of these other great role models we've had. You know, Jesus Christ is just the one that I'm the most familiar with.
Yeah, I have been most familiar with Moses, ironically speaking,
Oh,
and
there
I
you
really
go.
like. There's a Netflix series, really 3 episodes. It's really good. Has a lot to do with Jesus in terms of, you know, leading the good path and being a person of integrity and ethics, and it's really cool. Yeah, man. So
So you're a practicing Jew?
no, I was born. I was
Uh-huh.
raised as I did my rituals. You know, the baptism, the bar mitzvah, and everything. My father follows. He's not an Orthodox, but he follows really seriously.
Okay.
But
And
my
then,
mom converted. She was Catholic, so she converted.
oh,
So I always had access to both realities, which is in a way that I integrated there. Probably
so
even
what's your
more than,
current,
huh?
what would you say your current belief or spirituality is now.
Well, now that you define universalist, I think I'm more towards that.
Yeah.
I believe in the truth of every religion. I don't believe any form of extremism or fundamentalism. I'm right, you're wrong, is good. Which I think we should all use that for politics nowadays, especially nowadays,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, I have some really strong. It's funny. I think about sometimes maybe someday getting into politics more as a disruptor than a participant, because I just think that there's such a different and better way to handle politics. And again, politics is no different than religion, in my opinion. It's like I'm right, you're wrong. This is good. That's that bad. And I think we try to fly these flags so strongly that we become blind to what is the actual point, like what actually matters, you know.
I think that if this is by design or not, that's another discussion. But I think that the fact that the right is pro of certain values and the left is also pro of certain values, it's something that is divisive in itself. Ideally, because both have values that are very important if integrated. But when they are not integrated, people have to go either one side or the other. And that
Yeah.
creates this whole
Well,
mess that we see now.
yeah, there's a level of judgment. I think what we all fight every single day is the fear of judgment. And we tend to go along to get along. And if we, and I think that we all kind of identity and, you know, people want to fit in somewhere. And I think that we get so caught up in that we lose sight of humanity and love and support of like all different types of people, you know?
Yeah, I have been very caught up, especially in the past years. Yeah, that led me to suspensions in social media accounts, to losing friendships, having family members upset with me. And I was so righteous. But then I had a change more recently. I was like, you know what? I'm becoming apolitical at the moment
Yes.
because it's a source of disillusionment and division. So,
Yeah. I have this vision, this dream of politics going to this model of, at least in our selection process of who are, I do think representative democracy is good enough. It's not perfect, but it's good enough.
the best
But
we
I think,
have, right?
yeah,
Is
I
the
think it is. And I think that what would be a little bit better than what we have right now is to blindly allow the pool of potential candidates. There should be a selection process that's somewhat blind tested. And I've kind of likened it to, are you familiar with the TV show The Voice?
no.
Where, okay, The Voice is, I'll just share this quickly. Like, you've got your judges, your people who are familiar with singing talent and things like that, but their chairs are turned around, not facing the artist. And the artist gets on stage and they just sing their song. They share their art, right? And no one can see them. They can just hear them. And then if they like what they hear, they hit their button, their chair spins around, and then now we get a chance to see them. And then we'll be like, whoa, that voice came out of this person, and I think that there's a model of politics that we could enhance by, if we allowed people to kind of get into the process by passing some basic assessments, like, do you understand government and things like that. And then somehow we had blind debates where you can't see what party they're from, what they look like, anything else. And then we
I
just listen.
love it. I love it.
And then we get to open the veil, right? I still want to know, like, are you a criminal? Are you going to do something? Did you just win me over, but you actually, you know what I mean? But then I think there needs to be an initial stage of blind before we start the judgment, you know?
Interesting. Yeah, I never thought about that. Very, very cool. Yeah, probably we have to use some devices for voice distortion because some voices we can quickly recognize,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. But that's fine too, I think, right? Like, yeah, I mean, like, at least you're paying attention. Right now, most people don't even pay attention. you know, you probably will, just by them talking about their issues, probably be able to pick up what party they're from and, those kinds of things. But still, everybody should be tuning in and making their assessment, you know?
So changing the subject a little bit,
Yeah.
I noticed by the equipment you have at Strive, you have the technology of the sauna, of the cold plunge, it's kind of cutting edge, and you have all kind of knickknacks, you know. You
Yeah.
have the scanner. Talk about the scanner, the 3D scanner.
Yeah, the majority of people who come to us, again, this goes back to the confidence and the gateway, right? Most people who come to us really want to feel better in their bodies, and they care about how much what their body looks like, especially when they're naked or in less clothing. And so the scanner is a great tool for measuring. Your body composition. It does really two things really great. It's called a Staiku scanner. It's a 3D scanner. And you get on this platform, and what it will do for you is it'll create this really great progress image for you. It takes a 360-degree image, and it shows you exactly what your body looks like from all angles.
Like it or not.
Yeah, exactly. And so most people don't like it on their very first scan, but if you're doing the work and you're being consistent and over time you take scans maybe every 90 days or so, and you get to see how that image changes over time. It also does a really great job of like circumference measurements, which most of the time when someone says, I want a certain body fat percentage, or, I want to lose weight or tone up, or bulk up, or whatever the term is that they think they want to do with their body, we're really generally talking about the inches of what parts of their bodies are certain numbers of inches. And this tool does an amazing job of some very highly accurate circumference measurements, like you would with a tape measure. But tape measures have all these flaws, human error, a lot of different things. This is a really accurate tool. So we use this heavily as a part of our assessments to help people to kind of know what's going on with their body, and is the work they're doing working for them.
Wow. Yeah, it's really interesting. And it's on the recovery room, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that goes in the recovery room. So anyone who, if you have access to the recovery room, like you either have unlimited access and you can go in there and use the saunas and cold plunges any day, anytime you want. You can also use you can use the scanner as well. So it's in there in that room just as a additional feature.
I think it's important to say that you guys offer like initial scanner, right? For people that wants to know the gym and everything, right?
Yeah, so we do a consultation. We talk to people when they come in. We talk to them about their sleep and their nutrition and their fitness habits, and like what's their stress, um, what's their stress levels like, and how are they managing that. And in that consultation, we also offer them a free scan so they can kind of know just like where they're at with their body.
One thing that I noticed in the scan, not only shows the 3D representation of your body with like your avatar, but
Yeah,
also gives percentages of fat, percentages of muscles, and everything, like
yeah.
numerically.
Yeah, it'll do its best to give you an algorithm. It's using an algorithm like what it thinks that your body fat content is. It's not a perfect tool for those percentages because, um, again, it's not like a DEXA scan or hydrostatic tank or anything like that. So it's really kind of doing its best to kind of give you an assessment of that. But yeah, you get to know all this data. I mean, there's like you get this full report with all these metrics and all these data and body fat percentage and muscle lean mass percentage, and all those things are a part of that report.
Remember if it gives you what you have, what you are, in comparison to the ideal, some kind
Yes.
of ideal health, does it?
Yes, it'll tell you, there's a range, and I'm probably going to mess up the terms, but it's like, are you like at an elite level? Are you pretty fit? Are you average? Are you below average? Or are you at risk for a lot of health issues?
So I brought this subject of tech because I know you have a lot of knickknacks there, including this scanner. How do you see tech today in the world, especially AI, like the influence of this in all strata of society, including what you do in your industry?
Yeah, I'm very interested in AI. I think it has the potential to be a really powerful tool. I think it's also very dangerous. I think it has some major setbacks. However, I think when as with any tool, I think about a hammer can be dangerous, a screwdriver can be dangerous, AI can be dangerous, but all of those things also provide value and can really fix and help some things. So I do believe I use technology. I think that for one, as a business owner and as a person who's trying to be as effective as I can possibly be in my practices, there's certain things that I'm just not going to be good at with my human skill set, and using software and technology and tools that make me a better practitioner is helpful. So I do use them widely in a lot of different areas of my work. And and I'm
Can you
curious.
give an example how you use AI in your area?
Yeah, so I use Chat GPT pretty regularly. It's really I use it in a lot of different ways. It's a really fun tool for me to use, and sometimes I just play with it, like creatively. Like, I have an idea and I'm having a hard time structuring it, so I'll run some prompts through Chat GPT to, like, I don't buy into what it gives me as an output wholeheartedly, but it gives me structure. It gives me ideas. And as I can dance with it a little bit, I can really pull out of it what I was really trying to say within me. And I think it's a really cool tool for that. It's a really simple way to solve problems and get information fast, quick, right? Like, I can even Google used to kind of do this for us, but you got to sort through all this information, and ChatGPT kind of like organizes it in better ways, and you can ask it questions and you can really refine the outputs. So that's been a really helpful tool for me. you
Me too.
know
It's a brainstormy buddy, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I use it like that. Like, if I'm not trying to burden my friends' time with, I tend to lean, ask my friends questions and, hey, what do you think about this and stuff? But, depending on where they're at with their mental capacity and how busy they are, the answer I'm going to get varies, and I can have this like best friend in Chat GPT to really bounce these things off of. And, I don't always trust the information I get out of it, but it gives me something, you know?
And it's gonna get even better and better in terms of that too.
Yeah, this new 40 version I've been toying around with it, and it's been interesting.
You the four O, no?
4.0, yeah,
Like
whatever they're calling it.
4.0,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, you are ahead of the game. I didn't even play that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have been participating in another workshop. I'm That's another interesting workshop online. People that are trying to bring consciousness, ethics, and integrity into the AI world. And there's a lot of people from the industry there, like some heavy duties. There was the Pinterest owner there the other day, the guy who created
Pinterest?
Pinterest. Yeah.
Yeah.
So heavy people that are really on the trenches. So I'm very hopeful that movements like that can bring some more balance to the dangers that AI is posing.
Yeah. I think in the wrong hands, it can do, and it already has done some pretty harmful things. So we really have to be careful about that.
Yeah. Their main concern and the main issue that they are talking is the acceleration, over acceleration, because if we don't do that, our competitor is going to do, or China is going to do, or Russia is going to do, and we have to do this right away without measuring the consequences and
Yeah.
putting this very powerful tool in the hands of people that of all kinds of levels of integrity.
Yeah. The nuclear bomb is a good example of something in the past that was exactly like that. How do you use AI right now? Like, what are you
Like
mentioned
you,
yeah.
yeah, like you, I for my podcast, most of the drawings, and when you go to my website, if you haven't gone already, you're going to see this beautiful imagery there. That's all AI through prompts. Not that AI does the best result the first time, but I try to tweak. Sometimes I
Yeah.
even go to Photoshop and edit. And I'm not using Google much anymore. I
Me
just
neither.
ask ChatGPT to give me an answer and the link, because sometimes it just gives me the answer with no link.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, again, that's what I like about it. You can refine the products a little better than having to like sort through, okay, here's the website that has like my best answer, on Google. So, um, Yeah, it's cool. I run a lot of my writing through it to kind of get feedback on.
Oh, do you
There,
write? I didn't know that.
I write a lot.
Really?
And even in ways. A lot of it is more personal writing for myself, but I do on it.
It's like journals.
I have
Journals.
a journaling practice, a daily journaling practice that, and sometimes it's fun for me to run a journal entry through Chat GPT to get its perspective on what am I thinking about, which has
So
been
how
really
do
cool.
you do that? Can you give us more details? How do you engage with ChatGPT to give you feedback about what you write?
Um, so, so starting with, I prefer to handwrite. So that's a challenge, right?
Me
But
too.
when
Me
I'm
too.
kind of if I've taken one of those entries, what I'll do is I'll type it, I'll transcribe it from what I hand wrote, and I'll type it if I'm looking for the feedback into like a Google document or something like that. And then I'll just copy and paste it into ChatGPT and I'll start giving it prompts. Like I'll say something like, um, what might this journal, it kind of knows me now. I kind of like, hey, it knows I'm Athan Schindler, and I've been able to kind of give it some ways to kind of know who I am and what I'm about. And I have some prompts that kind of lead to that. But then
Because
essentially,
ChatGPT, I'm not a heavy user. I might be doing something wrong. ChatGPT doesn't have a good memory. Some,
well,
how do you
for
do
for
so the ChatGPT knows who you are?
Well, that's how I kind of I every single time I have to give it new prompts. Hey, I'm Athan Schindler. This is my website. Here's what So I have a actually cut and paste thing in a Word document that I when I'm trying to get this type of feedback from it. I input it in there as a prompt so that it's kind of remembering. It's not remembering. It's just cueing it to
So you just say every time who you are to him, to it?
basically,
Oh,
yes.
interesting.
Yeah, that's just a copy and paste thing that I've developed, and then it'll be like, what do you how do you think this journal entry aligns with, whatever. I have all these different cues. It's just really just exploring and curiosity. What could I use this journal entry to do for a social media post, or or how could I lead my gym better through this thought? There's a lot of different things that I do, and it's just play, right? It's just a way to kind of play with thinking and thought.
Very interesting. You said that technology helps you, but you also have a lot of good helpers at Strive. I love the people there. You have a good team
Thank
there.
you.
Like
Amazing.
you pick and chose very well.
Thank
How
you.
did these people came to your life?
Abundance. I can't really explain a lot of it. Is I think that when you're operating at your highest level, the right people, first and foremost, the right people are repelled by you, and they go away.
Oh,
And
wait, say that again. The wrong people repelled.
the right people are repelled.
What do you
Um,
mean?
when you're being who you are, and you are not. Well, this is my belief. So
Okay.
not speaking from truth. This is according to Athan. Um, we 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 by nature aren't going to be a good fit for everybody. We aren't the right
Yeah.
person. We aren't the right guide. We aren't the right leader for everybody. So when you are really being who you are, and you're not trying to people please, and you're not putting on a mask, and you're not, um, you know, falsifying any part of aspect about you, you are going to repel the right people. That you're going to just they're like, oh,
Oh, repel the people that are not supposed to be around you.
right, and you want to do that as quickly as possible, right? Like I don't want to keep people who aren't a good fit for me around me for very long at all. So being who I am repelled all the right people, and then all the right people are also I'm a magnet for all the right people,
Yeah.
energetically, value based, all those different things, and then it's just a process of kind of like developing relate. I love. There's nothing I love more than doing what we're doing right now, having a
Mhm.
conversation,
You should have
engaging.
a podcast. Have you thought about it?
Yeah, I have. I loved my podcast, and I haven't done it actively lately, and I want to do it
Oh,
more
I
because
didn't know. I didn't know you had one.
yeah, I have had one. I have maybe like 20 or 30 episodes
Oh,
on. on Apple and Spotify and all
That's
the
a good
major.
number already.
Yeah, but I haven't really put out any episodes in probably a year or more. Busyness of life,
Yeah, I
but
love to do that. I think there's so much learning that can be taken out of a conversation like that for both
oh
sides,
yeah,
and much more the other people that are listening. Actually, one of the things that helped in my last depression, that was quite recently, I would say, last year, was that I was feeling very isolated from humanity, so to
yeah,
speak. Although, I live here with my wife, but she works at home, and when somebody is in a depressive state, it's difficult to relate to people that are not. So she was with me physically, but not totally uh, at where I was. So I was feeling very isolated, alone, and everything. And I use podcasts of people that I like. Most of them are in Austin, coincidentally, uh, to just feel like connected to humanity, connected to people, like have a conversation, listening as if I was part of the conversation, and that really helped me. That was like a therapy for me.
100%. And that's the beautiful thing about technology nowadays. Modern society, you have access to so much information and so many different methods and types of people you would have never had access to before.
Yeah.
There's a trade-off there.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So Ethan, it's 10:11. I know you have a appointment at 10:30. Just letting you know,
Yeah.
aware of the time. So since we only have less than 20 minutes, is there anything, I'm not finalizing here. I'm just saying, like, is there anything that you want to bring that we didn't bring yet, since we have a short time already?
Um, I've loved the flow of the conversation. I didn't, like I said, I came with no agenda or no intentions. I just know that the conversation is always going to flow well. But I have been. I was hoping that what would come out of this is, you're working on some things, and I kind of want to hear what you're up to. And like, you're. I know you're creating some new ideas, and you've mentioned to me multiple times the 3D thing you're working
Oh
on.
yeah,
And yeah,
yeah.
I kind of want to hear what you're up to.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm an architect. As graduated as an architect, and I started working with 3D. It's called 3D renderings, right? Right, like early 90s. And the technology was very slow. Everything was so time consuming, much more than now. And then I had some career changes. I did a master's in psychology when I moved to the US. I did a master's in psychology and everything. And then a cycle kind of went back. In 2022, I saw the metaverse coming, and I said, well, that's an interesting opportunity to bring back that skill that I had. So I kind of revived the whole 3D thing. And after a few experiences with different partners, I'm with a partner now that we are working with virtual reality, and it's called XR now, which is virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality. And actually, there was one thing that I told you one time. Maybe we can experiment that in your gym.
Yeah.
Some people that have some experiences. Not this is not for everybody, but this is my main path to generate income, so to speak. Now, when I got out of my depression, I felt that I needed to make a lemonade out of my lemon. And in order to do that, I wanted to give back to people what I had by listening to those podcasts, and by having friends helping me in my most dark and difficult moments. So I decided to create a depressed anonymous group, which is still germinating the idea. And and then one day I was in a supermarket, and it just came to me, start a podcast. I was like, whoa, yeah, I love to talk to people. I love to have long, deep conversations, spontaneous, like you're not very structured. And I really, that, like you said, I attracted abundantly. It came a lot of energy, a lot of ideas. AI also helped. I had very good friends that I started into. They were open, very interesting people that are not famous, uh, mainstream, but have a lot to share. So I started interviewing them, and kind of like get reaching out to that richness of friendships I have, which when I'm depressed, I basically disconnect and I become very skeptical and very isolated and nihilist. And I started to recover the richness and power of those friendships, the information that these people have. And so you are one of the persons that are part of this change, because I met you right when I was like transitioning, and I said, well, it's you are an interesting person to bring here with what you represent.
Well,
So that's where I am now.
yeah, I've loved the conversations I've had with you, and and I have not listened to a lot of your podcasts yet, but I know that like just from the conversations I've had, you've probably had some beautiful interactions, and and I think that what the gift that you're giving to the world is powerful.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely I'm aligning with something higher. And like you said in the beginning of the conversation, I feel like I found my place here, my mission. I have been lost many times in my life, both personally and professionally. And I feel like whatever I do now, I want to keep this podcast as a source of energy and revitalization.
Yeah. Purpose is so huge for me. And it's actually something when all the people that I coach personally and individually, it's a major component. If like without purpose, we are lost. Like nothing means anything if you haven't. And I don't think that I personally don't think that we're just born with, when we think about free will, like again, like when we think about God gave us free will. I don't think that he predestined, she, they predestined us for anything. We get to choose that purpose. But if we don't choose that purpose and if we don't lock into it, if we don't commit to it, and if it doesn't mean something to us and how we want to serve the world, we are going to deal with depression and bad relationships and all different kinds of things. And so this is actually the first time I'm going to say this publicly, but so I created a tool for myself called the Purpose Dashboard. It's a
Oh,
tool that
really?
I look at every single day that reminds me of who I am, what am I up to, what are my commitments, and what is ultimately it combines to be my purpose. And I'm actually writing an ebook right now, a small book about how to design a purpose dashboard for yourself, because I think it's so applicable and useful for all people. And that's beautiful. Like you organically landed on it, but I think there's a way to expedite that for some people too.
I guess you're having some help from a little tech friend to write this ebook, huh?
Yeah, that's
No?
one of the areas where I feel like I don't want to lean on Chat GPT to write it. I think I bounce ideas off of it, but I think that that's like, I don't know. It feels like to me, like I know a lot of people, no judgment, no judgment. A lot of people are putting a lot of information out there based on what they're kind of like prompting Chat GPT to generate. But for me, it robs me of the creative process.
I
It,
totally understand. Yeah, I feel
yeah,
the same. The thing for me with ChatGPT, and I did a class about that, is it helps you to structure your ideas, but
that's what
not
I
to
use it
give
for.
me ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I'll let it generate an outline for me of topics. I will bounce an idea off of it. Like, help me give better structure to this thought. But then once it does that, then I try to really take it and put it. I don't always like the tone and the way that it doesn't feel like it's me speaking. And so I never really, I don't want to say never because that's not true. I rarely copy and paste and use what it gives me.
I think it's something good for you to research. I myself didn't research that, but I know somebody that they taught ChatGPT to know who they are.
Yeah.
So ChatGPT has a voice similar to them. You know,
Yeah,
I think
I've
it's
had good
possible.
success with saying, I guess I've put enough things out there to where I can say, write this in the tone of Athan Schindler, and
Oh, you did already. Okay.
yeah, it'll do a pretty good job. It uses some words that I don't love, and I'm always like swapping those words out. But if I'm trying to generate something pretty quickly, that is helpful.
Yeah, you might have done that organic. Yeah. Two things that you said that triggered me some thoughts. First is the concept of sin that religions point, especially the Christian. I don't know if you know, the meaning of sin is to miss the aim. Did you know that?
No, but that I love that definition.
So miss the purpose. Yeah. The other thing is that again, those ancient shamans from Mexico that I have been learning in this workshop, and also it's an interest that I have a long time. They have a word for that that for them is the most important thing in the universe, and the word is intent,
Mm,
which is pretty much what purpose is.
yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
have intent. Yeah. And they say that when you have an intent, you connect to the a higher intent, and that flows and make things happen.
That's what it is for me. I think that our spirit really is a form of if we all get the mental vision of like the old school phone systems where you had to plug a line into another line to connect the two. I kind of just feel like our spirit has these plugs, and you can plug into different things, and it's a very mysterious thing, but that's kind of how I see it in my mind.
Oh, it is. So
You
in
know
1989, this writer, his name is Castaneda. Have you heard Carlos Castaneda?
who?
Carlos Castaneda. He was big on the
Oh yeah,
70s.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So in 89, he wrote a book called The Power of Silence, and he explains the concept of intent. And he actually, that was before the internet. He says that the seer or the apprentice in that tradition, he has to clear the link with intent. So intent can manifest through it. Isn't
Yeah.
it beautiful?
It is beautiful, and I've had that experience myself. And you kind of like you learn from the teachings of others, and really try to practice these things, and you realize the power of these ideas or these concepts or these practices. And you mentioned the Toltec, which I read a lot of books, and there's very few books that ever really like fundamentally changed the way I lived my life. But one of the books that did was the Four Agreements, which is really about
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, the Toltec teachings. And, once I wrapped my head around those four simple concepts, it changed me. I plugged in.
Don Miguel Ruiz. Don Miguel
He's
Ruiz.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
The mastery of love and four agreements. And now it's five agreements. Apparently they've
Is
changed
it?
it, which I haven't read that one yet, but
I met him in LA, and he was bringing his son, which is now the main person. I
yeah.
think he was getting old. Yeah. So Castaneda, very people know Castaneda is mostly known for the sacred plants he brought in the concept
Mm-hmm.
to the mainstream as a PhD teacher. But later on, the next books, he says that there was a kind of a trickery of his teacher to open up his perception, because he was very closed up as a PhD teacher, in
Yes.
UCLA. And then he discloses to him that he's part of a Toltec tradition. So Don Juan, which is Castaneda teacher, was not like a humble Yaqui Indian. He was part of a long lineage of traditions that come from the Toltecs, which Don Miguel Ruiz is also, but they have different lineages, they have different branches.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the power of plant medicines, right? Like it kind of gets all the brain and the ego and things out of the way, so that you can connect. Like you can plug in and get the downloads from a wiser source. We block ourselves from that all the time.
Yeah. So now we have only 5 minutes. We can wrap up with this maybe.
Okay.
What are your thoughts about this renaissance of use of sacred plants like ayahuasca? What's your thought about it?
I'm in support of it. I think the challenge really is as with again I'll talk about tool. It's a tool, right? And when used responsibly and effectively, and when it's designed therapeutically, there's been so many. I mean, you cannot deny the amount of research and data that has shown how powerful and impactful these tools have been for people. And I just think that you know why would you deny people of options to that? And not every tool is a good fit for everybody, but I just I'm a major supporter of it. I've seen the changes in people when they use these tools. And I just think the key is and anyone who uses these medicines and these these plants, they'll talk about the integration piece. And I think that's the most important part. It's not just the plant itself or the tool itself, but it's like, what work did you do leading up into this therapeutic intervention? And what work did you do post, in order to integrate the wisdom and the teaching and the information that you got? And if you're doing that responsibly, and you're not just basically just trying to get high, and
Exactly.
recreationally,
It's not a recreational thing. Yeah.
it shouldn't be an escape either. I think a lot of people use
Yeah.
it like, let me escape my reality for a minute. It's like, no, let me get more real. Let me get more connected to truth
Yeah.
and use this as a tool, So I'm not very versed in all of these methodologies, but I am in support of it.
Yeah. It's interesting because first, looks like according to the shaman, many plants have different ways of helping different
Yes.
people. And they actually, she told me something that I never heard. Some plants help through themselves, like through what they are. Some plants help as bridging to higher beings or entities that help the person from another
Yes.
dimension. The plant is just like a boost of a tuning.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah,
that's how I think about it. Something that would take you 5 years to work through, you can work through it in a couple weeks a lot of times, and like you said, all these medicines have different, well, like I mentioned earlier, the right ones for you are going to work really great, and they have
exactly. Yes.
personalities and all these different things. You mentioned ayahuasca, but then there's like bufo, and then there's psilocybin, and there's all these different
Ketamine,
ones. Yeah, and
ketamine.
they have a different style, they have a different personality, and you're going to repel the right ones, and you're going to be a magnet for the right ones.
Yeah. Yeah, and she was also saying that sometimes they use that in conjunction, like a plant will be good for a person to show something to a person, but then if the person is too sad, they will use another person to handle the sadness of the person, so that they can learn more from that lesson from.
Yeah.
And as with everything in life, right, Ethan, everything in excess and irresponsible is not good.
Yes.
So at the same time, they were saying that some people, they abuse of that, and that can be detrimental to their energy, to their either biological or energetic body too. So it's everything with
Exactly.
caution.
Yeah.
Hello? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Am I here?
Yeah, you are. So we
Oh,
have 3 minutes. I think we can wrap up now. How do you want
okay.
to end the conversation?
Yeah. Just with gratitude. I am so grateful that there are people like you out there doing the work that you're doing. You're you're inquisitive. You're a curious person, and coming from a place of just trying to understand better, understand people, understand the world, understand the universe. And I'm so glad there's people out there like you doing this, because this is what I want to, I'm trying to learn as much as I can. And so I'm just so thankful that you're doing
I
this
can
and that you
say the
invited
same
me
thing
on.
to you. I'm thankful for the work you're doing and who you are and your aim, what you represent.
Yeah.
So
Thank
thank
you.
you very much, my friend.
Thank you. All right. We'll see you soon.
Okay.
Take care.
Okay.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye bye.